GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
From wherever we decide studios, broadcasted live on iTunes, Spreaker, and worldwide, this is the Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast with your host, the producer, Pat G. The G stands for gangsta. And now kick back and get ready for the eargasms.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, no, it is not Cyclone Jones. He is gone, but it is Pat G, along with Fury, and this is another edition of the TTRP, Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast, and we have a fun show planned for you today.
We're about to light your ears on fire with all of our hot opinions, and by the way, these are just the opinions of these two sexy beasts behind our microphones, because let's face facts, it doesn't get sexier than Pat G, because the G stands for gangster, and yours truly, just simply, Dan Fury. And,
of course, we are brought to you by Gear Network, and, of course, shopgear.com. Now, starting off, our last episode, we talked about how you were going into your final wrestling match of your career, and, of course, it was going to be a cage match. Now, I know you sent me the pictures, but how was the crowd's reaction to the match? Because from the pictures you posted, it was a packed house.
Oh, it was. So, I mean, it was an absolutely stellar card from top to bottom. World of Hurt Wrestling out here in northeastern New York, they always provide the best talent. And, you know, Tatanka came and did a special signing, but for the most part, the whole event, the whole Monster Mania was predicated on these two cage matches, being Swinger Sadusky and Jeff Starr, and, you know, the Alden Murder House versus what's now been dubbed Furious Pain, the World of Hurt Heavyweight Champion Tyler Payne, and myself, the now former United States Heavyweight Champion Sergeant Fury. They were on fire from the moment that the event began to the very last moments of the event. I mean, we had people in the balconies. They ran out of chairs in the back. And I mean, this is a pretty big place that does mixed martial arts and all sorts of pageants. And for them to run out of chairs for people to sit at, it was an awesome thought, especially knowing you're going into the main event. And there were certain people that did not know that this was the end for me. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there were a few people in the crowd, obviously, who knew, and only a couple of the boys actually knew that this was the end. Mm-hmm. I think for me, you know, when I got to the venue that day, they had the cage set up. They were doing testing to see how exactly it would work with the new ring that they have there. Worked great, obviously. I felt every bit of it. But, you know, there was kind of like this moment washed over me where it's like, I'm going out in one match that I always thought in my head, I'm like, this would be killer to do. And it was extremely killer. We went out there and we did it as a War Games style final match where it started with Shane Alden and my partner Tyler Payne, and then I entered the fray. And unfortunately for Shane Alden, Tyler Payne and I were ready to bring the pain, pun intended. And then his brother showed up after a 2-year hiatus. That crowd went insane. My ears were ringing, legitimately. Ears were ringing.
Oh, wow.
You know, and I think the topper is that, you know, fans get a steel cage match, they're expecting a certain thing. And then Eric brings out thumbtacks, which I may or may not have been chokeslammed twice into and then DDT'd into, which may or may not have been probably the coolest way to leave professional wrestling. But the big topper, the thing that no one saw coming, and I think this was the moment everyone realized it was over, was, you know, you create magic in certain environments, and you create moments that you just were on the fly and can't be done.
Yeah.
Or replicated. I handed Tasha over to Eric. in my mind at that moment, and for the moment of the fans, it was like, okay, this is done. You know, I could have done it back in June when I worked with Ataxia against the Squad. I could have done it with Trip in UWC, but I felt that with everything that had gone on previously, that there to hand over something that has become synonymous with my character and synonymous with me as a person, to hand over the bat and kneel in front of him and let everyone know, like, this is done. It was nice to go out, you know, it was nice to go out that way. And it was really cool because my brothers, both of them, and my dad were second row. And on my Facebook page, there's this really touching photo that someone grabbed. When I got out of the ring, I went straight to my dad and I gave him a hug. And if you look at the picture, my back is just covered in thumbtacks. There was no shirt. I went shirtless because, you know, obviously I wanted people to see it.
Yeah.
And, you know, covered in thumbtacks, covered in blood, and it's just a dad hugging his kid. And it was pretty special night. And, you know, in the coming weeks, I'll probably end up thinking about this more and more. But for right now, it's cool to be able to tell people that if you still want a part of Fury, you can find me on this podcast, on my own podcast, Films of Fury, as well as, you know, as a contributor for Necrocasticon, as both like a podcaster and a writer. And, you know, and also following me with the Spartan races. But, you know, coming off of this, I got to think, okay, what's the next big thing? You know, what's the next thing that I can do? And so I've decided that I am going to say this is breaking right now. Like, I haven't talked to anyone about this. I've decided I'm going to see if I can throw my hand into writing. You know, I know a good amount of authors through the podcasts that I've worked with who would be who have, you know, said they'd be more than happy to look at some of the stuff that I'm doing. And I'm kind of thinking of throwing my hat into the fiction realm. So we're going to see, you know, just what happens when I take the way that I do my work in the ring and just bring it into kind of a writing style. I know this is going to be a crash course in modern writing, but this is something that I think is really cool. And to be able to say now I can dedicate time to that, you know, I think is outstanding. And I'd like to thank all the people that have ever come out to see me, all the people I've worked with. You know, I've met a great lot of people doing this craziness. And later today, I'm actually going to post on my Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, Mr. Man, my manager, who, when I started wrestling in 2010, when I started training, he was training as well at the same school, older gentleman. He was training to be a manager, gave me a picture of he and I from an event, and he put it in a nice frame and everything. And I might look a little fluffy in the picture, you know, beer is not kind to this body. But for me, it was a very touching thing. And, you know, he has told me on many occasions that he's going to miss me. I'm going to miss him as well. It was a nice gift. But, you know, the show must go on, and I wish everyone in every company out there the best, because it's providing us with content to be able to talk about, which is what I love. I love talking about wrestling. I love, you know, being involved with it. So, you know, that's kind of me saying my farewells.
Excellent. And that was well done as well. Like, it kind of had put the bow on the proverbial greatly wrapped present that you had of your career.
Everything that I've had with wrestling has been dumb luck, and just you know, I've had enough people be like, you know, out both at the event and afterwards, sending me messages, and, you know, to all of them, thank you, it's been much appreciated, and I've been trying to answer all of them. But, you know, it is sad to see this part of, you know, whenever you close a chapter, and I know a lot of people are like, well, you could come back as a referee, you know, because they know I don't want to wrestle.
Yeah.
You know, especially after what happened the other night, it would kind of be shitty to, like, a year from now come back and be like, I'm going to wrestle for a couple matches. It's like, no, fuck it. When it's over, it's over. It's okay to admit it's over. but for me, I've met a lot of great people, and I think just by trying to be a good person to the people I meet and being kind to other humans has helped me in the fact that I didn't leave with very many people who didn't like me. I mean, if anyone has heat with me, that's on you. I don't have heat with you. We might not get along as people, but hey, that's humanity. So I would like to say that, it's been a genuine pleasure to have gotten to know a lot of the people, and I got to say goodbye to a lot of great people as well. Some of those photos won't be posted. Obviously, I took some backstage with some people, and I'm like, yeah, kayfabe's not dead for me. So
Yeah.
But it was very cool to be able to say goodbye and give the fans one last thing, which I've told people I wanted people to remember me for having fun. And if fun for you is having two demon zombies choke slam a guy twice into thumbtacks and then DDT him into thumbtacks, by all means, I'm glad I gave you that much fun.
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. But as, of course, if he switches gears from closes one chapter and opens a new one, another chapter, quote unquote, has been opened in the career of one Finn Balor.
Thank God.
Finn Balor, of course, making his return to NXT. And we weren't exactly sure what Finn Balor was going to do in NXT.
Yeah,
now we know.
Yeah, that's something you and I talked about is, the acquisition of one Finn Balor going into the first head-to-head episode of, because I remember we had decided we were going to cut recording for that night. We weren't going to do it.
Yeah.
So we could watch the product. And here I am, I'm enjoying what I'm seeing. And then you sent me the message hey, holy shit. Essentially, if there's a HS moment in professional wrestling, it's Finn Balor going back to NXT because he'd been off television since SummerSlam.
Yep.
And you and I had speculated how cool it would be to see the Demon King versus the Fiend at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But instead, they bring him back from his hiatus, from his honeymoon. Congratulations to him again. And you and I kind of were like, what are they going to do with Finn? And it's odd to say this, for Finn Balor to be lost in the shuffle on the show that he helped put on the map.
Oh, absolutely.
Is weird to a wrestling fan because, mind you, yes, Seth Rollins and those guys go, with the transition from Florida Championship Wrestling to NXT, there were a lot of champions and there were a lot of people that were popular that eventually came up to the main roster. But when it came to the road shows, the first people they put out on the road were Finn Balor versus Kevin Owens versus Tyler Breeze.
Yep.
I mean, Finn Balor was the guy. I mean, during that transition where they went from, seeing it on the WWE website to WWE Network, Finn Balor became the face of the product. So for him to go from that to Raw and, have a good, solid
run on the main roster.
Good main roster run. There's no argument about that. Sans the shoulder injury, he had a pretty decent amount of traction on those shows. So to go back to NXT, what the hell are you going to do with him? And then we're thinking, after the events of Wednesday night, oh, he's part of the Undisputed Era.
Yeah. And then there was an backstage WWE exclusive where they kind of talked to him, and he said, and he also had another interview, and it was pretty much said Finn Balor's like, the Prince is back. And we all know Finn Balor from his New Japan Pro Wrestling days as Prince Devitt. And the makeup and the paint and everything. But it was the thing that a lot of people didn't notice at the end of after he Pele kicked Johnny Gargano is he's standing in the entranceway, and instead of putting up the Undisputed Era symbol, he held his hands down in the motion of the gun. And that's a symbol that he created in New Japan, talking about the Bullet Club.
Which leads a lot of internet people to speculate, what are we going to see on NXT?
Yep.
And the future of other guys and other promotions and their contracts coming up. Because a couple weeks ago, we saw a picture of Finn Balor in Japan, presumably while he's been on this hiatus of his for the last couple months. And, I mean, he's standing next to a couple of prominent Bullet Club current members.
Yeah, he's standing next to one of the OG members in Tama Tonga, and then standing next to King Haku, of all people.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know the contracts currently sitting with New Japan as far as those two gentlemen go, but I mean, for God's sakes, Tama Tonga showing up on NXT television with Prince Devitt to go against Team, DIY would be money. That would be like a holy crap moment. Or is this signifying that we're going to see Gallows and Anderson and AJ show up? Because to have those three gentlemen, along with one Prince Devitt, going up against the Undisputed Era, I mean, Prince Devitt might just be looking out for himself. You don't know where it's going to fall.
Yeah.
And, I mean, do we call him Prince Devitt? Do we continue to refer to him as Finn Balor? I mean, is a name change in the cards for him to kind of step away from that NXT character that was created during that time when guys came in and they didn't use their original names? Now it's kind of like, well, who cares? We're not going to give you a different name if you already have the following and the copyright. Samoa Joe, Anderson, AJ being examples of that.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the thing is, you're kind of not sure what it's going to happen because, yeah, AJ, Gallows, and Anderson are kind of running with the whole the original club aspect, and that's cool and all, but technically speaking, for people that are legit wrestling fans and not just follow North America product, the original club is Gallows, Anderson, Balor, and Tonga.
Yeah. And so, for me, if they were to bring in Tonga, which is purely speculation at this point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There's nothing saying it. But if they were to give him the opportunity to come into the NXT universe, the NXT product, there is a guy right there who could, being Tonga, who could legitimately have one of the best runs because he can pop off at the mouth. He cuts a great promo. His social media presence is pretty entertaining if you've never followed him. Like, he's not afraid to call someone out on BS.
Oh, not at all.
To one of the fans. But one of the coolest parts about it would be the original Bullet Club all under one roof for the most part, like with the exception of obviously Young Bucks, who came in later with the club.
Yeah.
And you would have a lot of the major players. I mean, Adam Cole even, was a member of the club at one point in time. So
yeah,
it's like you have these shades. How cool would it be to see all this under one roof?
And the speculation even further is, yeah, say Tonga comes in and has the NXT contract and everything, which NXT contracts are main roster contracts. They're no longer developmental. And you potentially run the angle where Gallows and Anderson are kind of like tired, get to a point where they don't want AJ around. It's like, listen, you weren't around when we were created. Like, we're not the OC. Like, and they do that. They think they part ways or whatever, and then Gallows Anderson goes down to NXT and joins Balor. Imagine that come Survivor Series.
It would be an insane match. And granted, he kicked Johnny Wrestling in the face. Okay, you would say in wrestler talk, that was a heel turn. But what if it's just more of a, screw all of you who are pretenders to the throne. You aren't as good as I am. You never will be as good as I am. And oh, by the way, you can have your little cliques here and you can think you're all great, but guess what? Bullet Club.
Yep.
I mean, to me, that would be outstanding. In a story-wise perspective, it would be really great to see, but I look at it from the perspective of as a fan, how cool would it be to have all that under one roof in one match? And I'm speculating, I mean, at this point in time, do we know if takeover events are going to be happening, or is, due to this now being the official third brand, the black and gold, are NXT matches going to take place on WWE main pay-per-views? Because if that's the case, how cool would it be to have a Survivor Series match of Undisputed Era versus the original club?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Or if they do takeover, where generally the November takeover has been the War Games event, maybe even do, because Cole has the world title or the NXT Heavyweight Championship, so of course he has to defend it and whatnot. Imagine them potentially doing a three-way War Games match with Strong and O'Reilly and Fish against DIY and a partner versus Balor and two partners.
Yeah, or you just do one 4-on-4 match, winner take all championships.
Yeah, that too.
That would, I mean, because, we haven't seen Velveteen Dream.
No, we haven't.
Velveteen could come back to go against Finn Balor, and how awesome would that match be? I mean, that kid has so much talent. To go against someone like Balor, who's been on main roster, and, well, it's now all main roster, who has been on Raw and been on SmackDown, to come back to NXT and work with a kid like Velveteen Dream, who, I mean, a Velveteen Dream versus the Demon Finn Balor match would just be unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because the two characters and the two personalities in the ring at that time, although they are complete polar opposites, the charisma would be off the charts. Because they're polar opposites, that would make for a great match.
Oh, absolutely. That would be, and the thing is even when Balor made his return to NXT, people were talking about the potential matchups he could have.
Yeah, even we speculated. I mean, we went straight for, obviously, Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa.
Yeah.
But, you have Velveteen Dream, who can show up at any given point in time. You have Dijak, who is there. I mean, he's an unbelievable talent. They're starting to give him more screen time, which is great to see. I mean, you've got any one of the Undisputed Era and Finn Balor would be a great match. But then you have guys that maybe haven't even made a name for themselves yet, who Finn Balor could work with, because you look at someone like him who's got worldwide credibility, who has faced some of the best in WWE during his regular main roster time, pre this entire, 3 shows platform. And I mean, in January, he was going up against Brock Lesnar at the Royal Rumble.
Yep.
Okay. He has an unbelievable WrestleMania moment coming out as the Demon King Finn Balor. Following that, he has, which was pretty cool, his run, in SmackDown when he was going up against, once again, Bray Wyatt, but a different variation or incarnation of the Bray Wyatt character. He had a good year. He had a real cool year. So, in my eyes, if he's ending the year in NXT back home with doing a Bullet Club reunion, God, it'd be great to see him going to WrestleMania and them having an NXT championship match on WrestleMania and him being involved with it.
Oh, absolutely. Hell, it could be a complete wild card, and he did the symbols or whatever, and maybe he forms his own kind of Bullet Club style in WWE, and it's not a fact of Bullet Club. It's a fact of maybe it's a throwback to, like, his time during NXT, because like you stated, when NXT started doing the house shows, the main match that they were doing was Balor versus Owens versus Breeze, and we see Breeze and Fandango reunited. Kevin Owens is kind of like in a limbo, so to speak, or whatever.
Especially. Yeah, well, it's weird that he's in a limbo, especially considering that the first SmackDown on Fox, his match for his career and Shane McMahon's career was one of the highlighted stories.
Yep.
Like, that was one of the main stories going into that whole, first pilot, the pilot episode on Fox. And then all of a sudden, since then, it's kind of just been...
The next time you saw him, he was on Raw. He showed up at Raw helping the Street Profits.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, where are you going with this? Like, it's kind of, his character is kind of in, like you said, in this weird stall. But, I see Finn Balor having another great year next year. Let's hope he can end up on the WrestleMania poster again. Let's hope I get my Pirate Finn Balor action figure next year. But and one of the things that I think is great about this is it creates an air of unpredictability, which we all expected him to come in as the knight in shining armor, and then he, Pele kicks poor Johnny Gargano and, the head.
And then immediately leaves as the Undisputed Era just straight up piranha attacks Ciampa.
Yeah, and he's just like, I don't give a shit.
Yep, I don't
That's
care.
the best part. He's just like, I don't give a shit. I'm leaving. And then the great quote now is, the prince is back.
Yep.
Oh, this could end up being something, and let me just pitch this at you, since we talk about WrestleMania entrances and shit. Let me throw a hypothetical at you, baby. What if we're looking at Finn Balor's WrestleMania moment this year as, he's the prince. He might think he runs NXT, but really the king runs NXT. And how cool would it be to have Prince Devitt versus the King of Kings, Triple H, at WrestleMania?
That would be definitely interesting, especially, and that would be one of the moments that would be a dream type match. And Triple H has kind of already came out and said that he hopes that he doesn't have to return to the ring because he's so busy, but he will if he has to.
And to be fair, that would be money. I mean, Triple H versus Finn Balor, although there is a wide age gap at this point, who cares?
It's the prince versus the king.
Exactly. It's the, especially considering that they've already shared the ring on numerous occasions, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. When Finn Balor returned from his shoulder injury at the house show in Buffalo, it was in a match against Triple H. It was a 3-on-3 handicap match.
Yeah, it was.
They've already worked a little bit together, and plus they had the Raw 25 moment, in Manhattan Center, where, you had the Clique and the Bullet Club in the ring together. And they've done that kind of stuff. It's like, fine, you've teased it. Why not do it? And why not do it at WrestleMania? And why not give me another action figure set?
Yeah, absolutely. Not to mention another potential dual Funko Pop set, the Prince and the King.
I'm not even going to pretend anymore. I just want to collect some cool figures. Damn it, Mattel, get off your asses, make this storyline happen so I can have some cool figures, because the entrances would be hot.
And we've seen Mattel force WWE's hand and shit, so it's not like they can't do it.
Damn it. I'm going to flip my table in a second. I want those toys. But yeah, it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year for him, especially if they run with it in NXT.
Oh, absolutely. But we're going to take a small break here, have to pay some bills, do some ads. Of course, listening to the sponsors of Gear Network and TTRP. But we will be back after the break as we will talk the lovely crossovers of wrestling, boxing, and MMA. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Pat G from the Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast. And no, we're not talking pro wrestling today, but we are talking sports hoodies, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, soccer, and much more. And this is brought to you by houseofhoodies.com, a new sponsor here at the TTRP. You can visit thehouseofhoodies.com and pick up your favorite team's merchandise. They have current players, former players, or you can customize your own hoodie, whether it be the NBA, NHL, MLB, and the NFL. After you're done shopping, use the promo code TTR Podcast and you will get 15% off your order. That's TTR Podcast for 15% off at thehouseofhoodies.com. To the TTRP, Patchy and Fury, of course, talking about the end of Fury's career and the moments that led up to it and after the fact, and of course, what could happen now that Finn Balor is back in NXT and has said the Prince will return. But on that note, we're going to keep it within the wrestling world, as lately over the past couple of months or years, however you want to see it, there's been a lot of crossover and between sports, from boxing and MMA to pro wrestling and pro wrestling to boxing and MMA. And this coming off the reports that WWE is giving Tyson Fury $15 million. So, and of course, we've seen pro wrestlers like CM Punk and Bobby Lashley and Jack Swagger go into MMA. And, of course, you've had the crossovers of boxing stars into WWE, Money Mayweather and Mike Tyson and whatnot. And, of course, the crossover between UFC, MMA, and WWE. Brock Lesnar, Bobby Lashley, Jack Swagger, CM Punk. Yeah, and all that. And it's now a thing of... It's no longer all three sports are competing with each other. I feel like all three sports are now kind of in the same line, so to speak, in the same genre. Because we've seen multiple athletic commissions come out in different states and say all three sports are the same. Especially here in New York.
Yeah, New York, it's insane. For those listening outside of New York, the New York State Athletic Commission, when a couple years ago mixed martial arts was finally allowed to be done in New York State, they retooled everything as far as shows for boxing, mixed martial arts, and professional wrestling. They put them all under one guideline, which might sound like, oh, great, more safety precautions. But the problem is that mixed martial arts, especially mixed martial arts and boxing, draw bigger revenue as far as, what they're able to charge and everything for their product.
Yep.
Professional wrestling, is often considered a performance at a family show. So where it used to be you needed to have a nurse on site in order to take blood pressure and in case anything happened, and a doctor. Well, I'm sorry, a doctor at minimum. Now it's a doctor, a nurse, 2 EMTs, and an ambulance have to be on site or else the show can't go on. That's expensive.
Yeah.
That's just to tell you how one little cog in the machine of running an independent wrestling show in New York. But not to get too far off from the topic that Patchy started.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When the Athletic Commission in New York kind of like put all of those three things together, it kind of was like, the lovely song of one of these things is not like the other came into play.
Yeah, it's like, we understand that, the curtain's been pulled back a while.
Yeah.
Thanks, Vince, because that was Vince's way about getting out of paying certain taxes and fees in, I believe it was New Jersey, was saying...
yeah, I believe it was New Jersey.
Was coming out and saying, hey, wrestling is fake. It's not so guttural, heart-wrenching fucking words. There's my one F-bomb for the show. Now... You're absolutely right. Bradshaw on commentary a couple years ago coined this phrase or kept repeating this phrase, and I'm not sure if it's something that he heard on ESPN or maybe he heard it on Fox Sports 1, but the term combat sports.
Yes.
Anything that involves basically beating the tar out of your opponent. Because when Brock Lesnar returned, he said the most decorated champion in combat sports. And, when Ronda Rousey showed up, he was doing an interview show where he mentioned, the most decorated woman in combat sports. And, he would say it with such emphasis and such frequency that it became kind of like this new term where it's like if they say combat sports in pro wrestling, you're understanding that they either have a background in mixed martial arts, boxing, some competitive... Muay
Thai, karate, something.
Exactly. Something outside of the realm of what is known as just simply professional wrestling. I mean, even Greco-Roman, Greco-Roman and amateur wrestling for someone like Kurt Angle would be considered at least a combat sport unless they're defining it as anything with striking, because clearly in Greco-Roman and freestyle, you're not allowed to strike your opponent.
Yeah.
But there has been this cross-pollination over the years. We have obviously the Gorilla Monsoon, Muhammad Ali altercation in the 70s.
Yep.
You had Antonio Inoki had the first crossover match with Muhammad Ali that Vince McMahon promoted. You had Judo Gene LaBelle, who, helped train Roddy Piper, but also was instrumental in Ronda Rousey's training. But you've had it over the years, but not to the degree where they are so fluid. It was almost like this is a hard line. Like you're to think about Stone Cold Steve Austin and Iron Mike Tyson on Raw in 1998. I can't believe it's been that many years. You had him being like, Jesus Christ, son, you might be the baddest man in boxing, but you're stepping in the ring with the toughest son of a bitch. And there was that hard line where that you're a boxer, I'm a pro wrestler, or you're mixed martial arts in the case of someone like Ken Shamrock. This is professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Now it's like lumping it in under combat sports. You're able to go between like a Jake Hagar who can do mixed martial arts and then go do pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Dan Severn did that back in the 90s as well. But someone like a Bobby Lashley could fluidly go between the two. Yeah, and I mean Brock Lesnar has even done it during his WWE career, because UFC 100, him and Mark Hunt, 200, while he was still under contract for WWE.
Yeah,
because there was the big thing, like I'm going to kick your ass, Randy Orton, and then I'm going to kick your ass, Mark Hunt, and then I'm going to kick Randy Orton's ass. It's like the way that it's done now. It's almost as though boxing promotions, UFC, really Dana White, and wrestling promoters, now what's becoming the big two, at least here in the United States, with AEW and WWE /NXT, they're able to have them have a working relationship where, having someone like Cain Velasquez retire completely from MMA to do WWE for, I think it's 3 years is his contract.
I believe they did a 3-year contract.
And having Dana White be like, great, God bless you, because he's been one of the most dominant champions we had, and we loved him. He was a gentleman, and to really put him over on that, it gives sports fans like a nod, like this is cool. And then it gives wrestling fans a nod like, okay, if the boss of UFC is legitimizing this guy, then we'll give him a shot. I mean, granted, his shot is against Brock Lesnar at, this upcoming...
Sweet Saudi Money 5.
Sweet Saudi Money 5, because God knows you need that blood money. But I'm going to get in trouble for that one. Someone's gonna hate on me for that one, but yeah. So it's the truth though. Like, if you're gonna lump it all as one thing, then it would be cool to see more crossover. Because wasn't there that buzz of Floyd after Floyd Money Mayweather? It gave a shot in the arm to Big Show, but recently the other buzz that happened was Conor McGregor made that big bubbaloo, and Triple H was like, "Come on down. I'm sure we can find something for you."
Oh yeah,
it's like. There's always that invite for these other competitors in other sports to jump ship, because WWE hands out good paychecks, because they also have residual paychecks due to merchandise and licensing rights, which, as far as I know, you boxers and mixed martial artists, unless they own a brand, so to speak, like Death Clutch was for Brock Lesnar, or anything with Money Mayweather.
Yeah.
You don't make all that money. You at least have the residuals from action figures and t-shirts and licensing that WWE will send you.
Yeah, and DVD sales and whatnot.
Exactly. So, like, there's that money to be had if someone wants to jump ship. And then again, if a professional wrestler, like, look at CM Punk, wants to try their hand at something like mixed martial arts, while Punk may not have been 100% successful, you have to give the dude credit that he had the balls to walk away from Vince McMahon money to go at least try.
Oh, absolutely.
He did the same thing. He was successful in his couple fights. Bobby Lashley was very successful in his mixed martial arts. And Jake Hagar has had some relatively good success with his stuff, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is while the last Jake Hager fight ended in a stoppage for whatever the reason, I didn't read into it. I just saw that it was stopped.
2 knees to the throwing of his opponent is what I understood.
Oh yeah, I was like, I saw it was stopped for that, something like that. His next fight, they said the Inner Circle's going to accompany him to the cage.
And I mean, you see that, like, that's kind of pretty dank if you want to look at it from that perspective. That look at the contract that AEW is offering him, knowing that he is a dual sport competitor. Much like if you ever, fans might want to check out Dan Severn. Like, Dan Severn, if you ever hear the stories about him on other wrestling podcasts, where Dan Severn had a book. And Dan Severn, a calendar book that he would have to carry around for him for his bookings. But he would put in the blog what exactly it was he was going to, because he did bare knuckle boxing, he did mixed martial arts in the heyday of cage fighting, when it was taboo, where they thought it was human cockfighting, as Senator John McCain put it, or professional wrestling. And do remember, at that time, Dan Severn was NWA champion. He was going over to New Japan, and he was wrestling in the WWE. So, like, you look at an athlete like that, the fact that Tony Khan is willing to put one of his performers that he has under contract, that he gives health insurance to, and be like, yeah, you can still do your MMA thing. These guys are still doing their indie thing. It's like, dude, that's a great way to get your product out there. To have the Inner Circle out there with him, accompanying him, That's kind of cool if you think about it, because, that's just more eyes on your product.
Absolutely. And, of course, there's the recent news of the Olympic medalist Anthony Ogogo, who he signed a deal with AEW. Yeah,
I mean, look at all of the crossover talent. And I mean, in this equation, in this conversation, we've only mentioned her name once. Ronda Rousey.
Yes.
I mean, Ronda Rousey was, is one of the most recognized sports figures of the modern times. I mean, she put women's mixed martial arts on the map. Her obvious loss to Holly Holm and, the way that she left UFC. A lot of people were like, wow, that sucks. But then she showed up in WWE, had a banner year last year, just an unbelievable year last year. You showed up at the first Women's Royal Rumble and then just took off, had a great WrestleMania match, and then just had a great year in general after that. She is a crossover, sensation in and of herself. And so you can see where wrestling attracts people into it. And, we're just looking at a small grouping. It's always attracted, the best athletes. But for AEW to now be getting these athletes as well is pretty cool. And, I mean, you have to remember, JR is probably instrumental in that because JR has always felt that, you got to have that top-tier athlete because they're bred for this. Well, some will argue that hindered a lot of great independent wrestlers from getting shots in WWE for athletes who, say, maybe competed on the Olympic team for an hour and a half at shot put. It at least is going to give them a different kind of scouting eye and what to look for in talent down the road.
Oh, absolutely. And this is the thing is, you also got to remember with AEW, you have all that knowledge from different backgrounds and different countries between Jericho and Malenko.
And yeah, absolutely. And you have to remember there's so many in this machine that's down there. And for me, you have to take it from, all right, what's the best on this independent wrestling circuit? What's the best? What do fans want? What are fans watching? What do fans clamor for? And, you look at what they are getting offered all over the world, and, you then attract other stars which may have backgrounds in other areas, which includes mixed martial arts and boxing. And obviously, because Tyson Fury is about to get $15 million for probably 10 minutes worth of work. Yeah,
exactly. And this is the thing: when I saw that report that he was going to get that money, and I'm just like, holy mother of Mary Joseph!
$15 million. How much I'm just first off, it's that sweet Saudi blood money.
Oh,
secondly,
yeah.
How much did Tyson get for the reffing gig? It was a couple. I know it wasn't like, because it was when Vince was starting to make waves against WCW. I mean, Floyd Money Mayweather claimed to be getting $40 million for WrestleMania 24.
Yeah, and Mayweather only got like $4 million.
Yeah, but I mean, there was the image of it. But still, $4 million is still, for that moment, was still a good damn payday.
Yeah.
I mean, his outfit alone, I think they said, was something like his chinchilla trunks that night were like $200,000 trunks.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, dude makes the money, he can do it.
Tyson was paid $3 million.
Okay, so the greatest heavyweight champion, arguably, in boxing history, one of the most recognizable names, got 1/5 of what Tyson Fury is getting today. Damn.
Yeah, and I actually, and then Mayweather got, according to a report on ESPN, Mayweather was paid $20 million.
Okay, so Mayweather got 20, so he just doubled the size. It's not like guys not to double the size, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So $20 million. Yeah, and he had a WrestleMania moment. So this is $15 million for a Saudi Arabia fight, which may last 10 minutes because who knows if, granted, he's a champion boxer, you've got to have the cardio. But, I mean, professional wrestling is not boxing. It's a different kind of cardio. It's a different kind of training that you have to do. So this could be either the most glorious waste of $15 million we've ever seen, or Tyson Fury could actually pull it out of his ass and make it a really good match with Braun Strowman.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. The $15 million is what's being reported, and even I think Tyson Fury's opponent, Deontay Wilder, he's come out and has accused Fury of lying about how much he's actually getting. So, at the end of the day, if Tyson Fury's getting $15 million to wrestle 10 minutes with Braun Strowman, whatever. I don't care.
Yeah, because I'm not going to be watching it anyway. Sweet Saudi Blood Money 5.
I'm like, I don't really care. It's called I'll be at work and I'll see it on Twitter.
Yeah, because God knows it's at, what? 11 o'clock.
1 p.m. on Halloween Day.
Yeah. I've got things to do, like, have a job so I can pay child support. No, thank you.
I was like, if it was like a Friday or a Saturday, that's cool. But it's Halloween Day. I'm going to be at work. I'm like, I'll see it on Twitter because there'll be people on Twitter posting highlights.
Because God knows that people actually take the day off to watch wrestling and complain about it on social media. Who does that shit?
Yeah, exactly. Not to mention the fact that the WWE SmackDown roster, holy mother of God, they're in for a rough patch. Because they have the show in Saudi Arabia.
Uh-huh.
Then SmackDown Live is here in Buffalo on November 1st.
Oh Jesus, that's a bad. So essentially they're flying from Saudi all the way to probably, if I'm not mistaken, probably Amsterdam to JFK to Buffalo International.
Yeah.
That's gonna suck. Unless, of course, they private plane them all. But
from what I've heard is they're doing a charter for the SmackDown roster.
Jesus, man. So they have to wrestle, then run to the airport and fly.
So the report coming from 411mania.com. If you're a member of the SmackDown roster, you're going to have a very, very busy November. WWE has several dates set for their talent, but SmackDown in particular seems to have it harder than Raw. Starting next Thursday, which is, of course, the Saudi Arabia, they will fly to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for Crown Jewel. Once that's over, they will fly 6,621 miles to Buffalo, New York for the live November 1st Friday Night SmackDown taping. They will go home for a short break, then immediately go to Europe for a UK tour that will run until the November 13th in Switzerland. Then it's back to the US for a TV taping in Philadelphia on November 15th and a live event on November 16th, and then they finally get a break.
Well, I mean, that goes back to the Fox deal. And I mean, you have to think Fox does not want a B show. And if they want the top talent on their show, they're going to be paid for it. I mean, let's be honest. Brock Lesnar's on the show. You know he's going to be there in Buffalo. They're paying. They're getting what they want. At this point. Do I feel bad for those guys? Oh my God, yeah, I feel bad for every single one of them that is going to have to go through this month of November. And mind you, all this is leading up to some Survivor Series, which is one of the big four. And I've done that flight, the overseas flight, several times in my life. I would not wish that flight on my worst enemy. I mean, granted, they're going to have a charter flight, so it's going to be a little bit better than a military flight. But yeah, no, thanks. Because I know that jet lag. That jet lag sucks. They're going to be off by like a week physically in 3 days, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Just the over there and back, their body's going to feel that like they've been time traveling.
And the thing is when the report came out, I was talking to somebody about it, and you figure the show starts at 1 p.m. on Halloween. Our time. That's our time. But in Saudi Arabia, that's 8 p.m. because they're 7 hours ahead of us.
Yes.
So you figure, and most of these Crown Jewel shows go 4 or 5 hours. So you're looking at like anywhere between 5 and 6 o'clock time, Eastern Standard Time. But there, it's going to be like 1, 2 in the morning.
And they're going to be jumping on a plane.
And then they're going to be grabbing their gear, jumping on a plane, literally flying from Saudi Arabia all the way to Buffalo, New York, which is like a 15 to 20 hour flight.
Uh-huh.
Easily. Not to mention the time zone difference. So, yeah, you're looking at, okay, let's leave Saudi Arabia at 1:30 in the morning. Okay. Well, 12 hours is 1:30 p.m. Like they're literally probably not going to get into Buffalo until a couple hours before the SmackDown taping.
That's going to be anyone who is on that card who comes to Buffalo, I'm going to be interested to see how they are, because I will tell you, I was dog shit when I flew into Kuwait. I'm being just blunt. I couldn't function flying from Houston to Kuwait. Like, it was impossible to even, like, fathom being able to do that. And then, you know, obviously Kuwait to Atlanta the last time I did it, you know, back and forth. But yeah, like, and the one layover I had was in Amsterdam. So it's like, yeah, dude, I legitimately feel bad for all of those dudes and women involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of show actually gets put on.
Well, you can always drink Death Wish coffee, guys. It's made right here in beautiful upstate New York and Round Lake, New York, and you can get it and you can drink it at your local Wegmans when you get there to Buffalo. Yeah,
that's very true. That's very true. They could and whatnot. So, but that's going to do it for us here on the TTRP. We will be back later this week with a special episode all about WCW Halloween Havoc, the matches, the moments, the good, bad, and ugly, and all that in lieu of Halloween Day.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Keep it locked here on the Gear Network for more great content from us, from the other shows that Gear Network has. For Dan Fury, I'm Pat G, signing out. See you on the flip side. The Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast is brought to you by Gear Network and ShopGear.com. We can be listened to via Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else you can get your podcasts. The TTRP introduction was done by Trevor Dugan. The show is hosted by Patrick Gancheski and Daniel Roberts. Post-production of the TTRP is done by Patrick Gancheski and John Cimino. If you'd like to follow us via social media, you can search Turnbuckle Talk Radio Podcast on Facebook. You can follow us at Twitter by using the name Turnbuckle_talk. Or if you have questions or concerns, you can reach us via email at turnbuckletlkradio@gmail.com. We'd like to thank you for listening to the Turnbuckle Talk Radio podcast, downloading our episodes, following us on social media, and interacting with us.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.